You're listening to Like a Real Boss podcast, where we go beyond the title and unravel the complexities of being a boss. If you're a head honcho, top dog, or queen bee, this is for you. Get insight from experienced leaders and passionate workers. This is your wake-up call. Ready to get bossified? Now, your host and the real-life boss, Tiana Sanchez.
Welcome and thank you for joining another episode of Like a Real Boss. This is Tiana Sanchez, your host. And as always, we thank you for tuning in. I believe that this is going to be the best 30-minute investment of your time today. I don't know where you are in your leadership journey. Maybe you're a brand new boss. Maybe you're seasoned. You've been doing this for a long time. Or maybe you're considering entering this leadership position. Wherever you are in your leadership journey, again, I believe this information is going to help you. This is the place where you get tips, tricks, trends, tools, where we talk openly about the stuff to help you be a better boss podcast. So I always like to remind you how you can find us because I'm not sure. You may be listening to us on iTunes, but here's another thing. We are also on Stitcher. We are also on Spotify and Spreaker. So you can find us just about anywhere. And we are in over 21 countries. And so we're so excited and proud about that. We are thrilled to bring you the best topics. And I always do my best to find passionate leaders, experienced workers to come in and offer some sage advice to you. When I started very early in my career, and I always like to give the little background because you might be listening for the first time, but I started at the ripe old age of 17 and I was clueless, didn't know what the heck I was doing as a brand new spanking manager. And if you remember how you were at 17, thinking about the responsibilities that entailed, why would anyone want to say yes, right? But I believe there was more for me. And thankfully, I had great people in my life. A number of them were fantastic women leaders in my life that shaped me, molded me, invested in me, and I believe helped me to be where I am today. So again, this is a show where we want to help you be a better boss. And so I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today that's going to be talking about a topic that we just can't get enough of. We really, in our time today cannot get enough of this. And so I want to introduce Dorothy Martin-Neville. She is a speaker, author, coach, and consultant with a Ph.D. and the founder of 4 companies. I got to find out about that because I'm challenged just running one company, but she's the founder of 4 companies and is an entrepreneur. She quickly learned that there was a need to developing leadership skills. So as a psychotherapist for 25 years and a graduate faculty member and a clinical instructor in medical school, she founded 2 institutes and developed her own system of leadership training around her work called the 5 Archetypes of Leadership. So what Dorothy does is help women excel in leadership positions. She sees the need, regardless of success level, for recognizing the current fears, values, and processes present while developing the mindset of communication skills needed for success. And we're going to talk about women, how we can do more by standing in our power and getting a seat at the table. So welcome, Dorothy, to the show.
Thank you so very much. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to pour into our listeners and serve our listeners today. And we do our best to generate topics that are going to provoke thought. You know, I like to provoke folks. I like to talk about stuff that's going to get people talking long after the episode and the show is over. And, you know, this is certainly a topic when I think about, you know, we talk about deserving a seat at the table, standing in our own power, standing in our confidence as people, as women, as individuals, as leaders, as professionals. And I want you to tell me, why does this topic, Dorothy, matter to you in today's climate? And why do you think you're the best person to talk about it?
Well, 2 different questions. One, why today's market? We absolutely need more women in today, especially. My work with women and myself as well, because certainly I'm on my own process. I think those who are most effective are those who have done their own work. And what I believe is, for myself, coming from an orphanage and being raised in the housing projects in the inner cities of Boston, it was clear to me at that point women had little to no power and little to no say in what they did with their lives or with whom. And it was really important to me to not become a statistic. And over the years, as I ended up becoming a therapist and then a coach with women, I saw as well, regardless of where you come from, regardless of the background, it is imperative now for us to be out here, because my experience shows me that women are really balanced and they own their leadership. They bring an element of heart, soul, compassion, and really collaborative approach to leadership. And there's very little emphasis right now on collaboration. There's very little emphasis on heart and soul. And I think we need to bring that out if we're going to transform this planet into a place where there's room for all of us at the table.
Absolutely. For the month of March, we celebrated Women's History Month. And one of the things that we did on the show, which we often do, again, is find really great individuals who can come on and talk about topics. And we devoted that entire month to women. And that actually came up when we talk about the balance and what women actually do bring to the table in their leadership positions. It's interesting because in years past, some of those leadership skills that we naturally possess were overlooked, those being naturally empathetic, caring about your employees. Dare we use the word care, right, in our workplace, and this collaboration and working together and really being diverse and uniting diverse groups. And so when you talk about collaboration, and I want to know from you, what have you done with your clients and in your work to really showcase these skill sets, these leadership skill sets that women possess?
Quite a bit, actually, in regards to, because I love my work and I approach it from all different angles. You have to meet the client where he or she is. But in working with my women leaders, several who are in the C-suite level, I have found one was a executive on Wall Street. She was the CEO of her own company on Wall Street. It ended up merging with several other companies. She thought she was going to merge with one. People found out about it. And it ended up becoming buyouts and so forth. And there was a merger of many, many companies, so that she ended up being the CEO of the American division of a global organization. And when she called me, she was overwhelmed because she could see herself as the president and CEO of her own small firm with 50, 60 people. But now, being the head of the American division of a global organization, that required her to grow into a position where she was comfortable having a much larger energetic footprint. She needed to grow into seeing herself as somebody who had the skill sets, the power, the ability, and the intuitive know-how, as well as the pragmatic business skills to make this happen and make it happen well. And we went and worked together and helped her with many of those, the basic concrete elements of a larger company, especially a merger. What do you insource? What do you outsource? How do you raise VPs and senior VPs from other companies who may resent the fact that you became the CEO in charge when they wanted their CEO to be the one? How do we bring it all together? And her initial fear was, unfortunately, one many women leaders confront, that she wanted to be nice. What I find with many women in leadership, they are still stuck with old messages of either being tough or being nice. And either one of those descriptions ends up sabotaging your effective leadership. To be a nice girl is to be terrified of offending anybody. It's being terrified of not being liked, of not being wanted. And if you're going to be an effective leader, you have to acknowledge already there are people who will resent you, who will not like you, and some will not want you around. And to take on the position of being tough to show them how powerful you are really shows them how much in defense you are. So how can we really work with the woman, depending on how she presents with me, to really allow her to move to a place of power out of niceness? I'm writing a book now, letting the good girl die so the real woman can live.
Oh, I like that.
It really is about letting go of nice. If you're powerful, you've got a huge heart, you're compassionate and intuitive, and you know how to make things happen. Because it's great to be wonderful, but in business we also know how to be productive, how to bring in the bottom line, and how to make things happen. And the best part is when you enjoy doing that.
It's changing the narrative that we've been given. And you spoke on that when you said it's the fear of being nice and being tough. And I've talked about this. I have a talk that I do. It's called The Future of Leadership, but it's leadership. And I asked some women about what were some of the narratives that they had been given in their workplace. And literally, Dorothy, you hit the nail on the head. Number one, hands down, was nice. Like, you have to be nice. Either you don't want to be too nice, or you're not nice enough, or again, you don't want to be perceived as too tough, which is so interesting because if it were let's say a different gender, if it were male and they were tough, they would be seen likely as an effective boss, as someone who, is direct, and we like direct bosses. But when you're a woman, those titles, so to speak, don't necessarily have the same, they don't mean the same. They don't have the same definition when it's placed on a woman. And so growing into her position, you said that she was comfortable being in, the leader of a smaller company. Then she had to grow into a larger position and get that intuitive know-how, you said. And that would require, that collaboration with other people in departments and overcoming some of her own challenges, whether it's fear of being too nice or having the label of tough, and changing that narrative. Leadership is not one-sided. Leadership is not in a box where you have these 10 skill sets and you're a fantastic leader. I really do think it's very individual in what the position requires. Dorothy, what is your philosophy on leadership? Because I know you have coined your own work around the 5 archetypes of leadership. What's your philosophy?
From my perspective, leadership is absolutely about service. A leader, to begin with, has got to have an enormous vision. A leader has to have a vision of who he or she is going to become, what they want the company to become, and how it is they want to get there. So that has to be in place to start, and they have to own it. I may be working with people up higher and higher up the chain, or the board, or whoever it may be, but I've got to own a vision and not just take something on when I walk in the office. I have to own it. This is who I am. This is my purpose, if you will. And as a leader owns his or her own personal purpose in life, and who they want to be in life, and what impact they want to make on the planet, they walk out there with a certainty. And in that certainty is a comfort level that this is my vision, this is my dream, this is what I'm helping to make happen. And in doing so, with all of those I theoretically am in charge of, to use an old term, I want to support every one of them, because I know that to have the best team, I've got to have the best leaders behind me. So my objective would be and this is how I see all leadership, it's to continuously develop the people who are working with me, who are on my team, who are 2 or 3 teams down, depending on my position in the company. That the job of a leader is to continuously be of service, providing training, support, and feedback. I'm not talking about the old annual review. I'm talking about feedback, knowing your people so well that you can provide the necessary feedback to let them become the best leaders out there. Because a great leader is surrounded by effective leaders.
If we could pause for just a moment. I mean, if we ended the show right now, it would be worth our listeners' time. Let me just say this. If you're listening, you really need to rewind this part and play it again, because what Dorothy just said is powerful. We do not, I believe, focus continuously on developing others. And we can say we do it all the time, but if it doesn't show up in our actual actions and in our work, and yes, we have a nice fuzzy logo on our website and some core values, but if we're not living and breathing that and doing what we say that we're supposed to be doing, that's something entirely. But what you just said is it's about service, but it's about continuously developing others, the people below you, the people a couple of levels below you, consistently, continuously, and giving feedback. Everyone who is in a leadership, supervisory, boss, manager position needs to get a hold of this right now, because this is where many people and organizations are missing the mark. Yes, our meetings are important. Yes, tasks and operations and, all of these things are important. But if you don't have people supporting your vision behind it, you're not going to execute. You're not going to get accomplished what you want. So important what you just said. the vision, is that one of the 5 archetypes? So I would love for you to share what your 5 are, if you could, that you've talked about and developed. Is owning that vision and having that vision one of the 5? Can you share that with us and describe what those are for our listeners?
Truly, yeah, I would love to. It's a part of it. There is one great visionary leader, but I've broken it up into 5 archetypes. The first being a thought leader. And there are some folks in any company, we need to have thought leaders. We need to have folks who think out of the box, whether you've got one product or one service or 20. Having somebody who's skilled at thinking out of the box, saying to you, you've got this podcast. Have you thought about speaking in order to promote it? Have you thought about writing a book? Have you thought about webinars? How are you promoting your podcast? A thought leader is going to work for you and continuously have that big picture skill set that they can come up with concepts that may never have crossed your mind. And this leader needs to be honored for who they are as a thought leader. Unfortunately, many times in corporate, you get somebody who's a great thought leader. Because they're so good at it, they're put in charge of a team. They may have absolutely no skill in how to run a team, and then they fail. And somebody says, well, I guess they were a one-trick pony. I thought they were much better than they were, when in fact they were phenomenal as a thought leader. That said nothing about a team leader. The team leader is a second type of leader that's out there. The team leader is that person who is so invested in people, who loves working with people, who loves doing that training, that development, who on their team knows the strengths and weaknesses of every single person on the team and accentuates the strengths, and if needed, helps develop the weaknesses. If not, knows how to work the whole team to compensate for each other's weaknesses while bringing out everybody's strengths. And that team leader is a compassionate giver, a compassionate trainer, compassionate in understanding the needs of the people on the team and how to make them most effective as well as most invested. We know now that millennials, they need to believe that they are working for purpose, not just working for money.
Right.
There has to be a bigger purpose. And any organization, we're finding out now that organizations that are really purpose-driven rather than simply profit-driven are the companies that, if the C-suite buys into it and they train all the other leaders down the chain, that team leader is going to be the one that makes sure their team, everybody on it, is invested in the corporate vision. And they will be making that happen. And so that everybody of these millennials employees and millennial leaders, they're looking at coming into work to live their purpose. They're not just doing their job. And the team leader is completely invested in that.
Now, is the team leader, Dorothy, because I know the thought leader you said doesn't necessarily have to be a leader of individuals, right? Not the head of the team. But the team leader would be someone with those skill sets that you would appoint to be at the helm of a team.
And that's why I would point them to be ahead of a team. I'm not going to point them there because they are great innovators. You have great innovators at these major organizations who have absolutely no people skills. They may even be on the spectrum, if you will, the Asperger's, the spectrum of all kinds of issues. But they are phenomenal at innovation. They are techies. They are whatever. But you don't take somebody like that and put them in a team as a team leader. They don't work well with others, much less work well as a leader who can train and be so intuitive and compassionate with other people. Know the leadership style of the people who work for you and know where their best leadership style comes out. And really, it takes a skill. To be an effective leader means to be open to seeing there's not one right way to do anything. There's not one right style of leadership. We all bring different gifts to the table. As long as we share the same vision, we can work phenomenally well together for a company, but recognize where their strengths are. And that really part of that strength is in leadership style. And let the team leader be the team leader. Let the thought leader be that creative individual that may work pretty much on their own. They just come into team meetings, but as a consultant, not as an integral member of a team, because that may not be their skill set.
So we have the thought leader. We have the team leader, which you both described.
Right.
What's the third of your
five
archetypes?
The third one would be the supportive leader. Those are the folks that truly want to be a VP. They don't ever want to be the face of the company. They want to be the VP. They want to be the one behind the back. They want to have the back of of the CEO. They want to, or the COO. They want to have the back of the person in front of them. They are the ones that will work night and day. They love filling your needs. If you're a speaker, you go on stage. They're the ones that make sure you've got everything set up to go. They are fed by knowing that you've got your PowerPoints in place. Your speaking is in place if you're on a monitor. They've got everything ready to go, and that fills them. They don't ever want to be the one on stage, but they love being the one that gets you on stage looking your very best. And honor that. And unfortunately, some of those are so great, they're rewarded by being on stage where they fail and they panic and they don't like their job any longer. They loved being where they were. That's not limited expectation. That's owning their skill set, and that's where they belong. The fourth is that visionary leader, that person who loves being out front, who loves being the face of the company, who has the charisma, the skill set, the ability to be on stage and really generate an idea, generate a following, generate the future of the company because they make things happen because of who they are. And then we have the organizational leader, that person who is in heaven if you create a new product because they get to have the ability to create procedures and protocols. They are in heaven in a back room creating procedures and protocols. They love it. Step 1, step 2, step 2A, 2B, 2C. They are in heaven creating those organizational development protocols and procedures for your organization. Let them go. They are not about being the face of the table. They are an organizational leader, and let them know it. And really what I've seen, unfortunately, is so many people promoted into positions that they don't belong in, not because they're limited, but because their skills don't fit the particular position they were promoted into.
I agree 100% with that. And when you described that the leadership, again, position is about service and that you've given these 5 examples, each one uniquely in their own right contributes to the overall team or organization, if you will, and they own their skill set. I like that you said that, Dorothy. They own their skill set. So you have the thought leader who's the out-of-the-box thinker. You have your team leader who's driven by more people and can actually lead the team, who's compassionate. You have the supportive leader who is more behind the scenes and comfortable behind the scenes supporting the vision and supporting other individuals that are making things happen. Visionary, the person who's out front, and the organizational leader, the person who's developing the protocols and the procedures. And now when you created this 5 archetypes of leadership in mind, what was your thought process when you were thinking about why distinguishing between these 5 types of leaders or leadership styles were so important, helping you with maybe your own seat at the table or helping your clients getting a seat at the table and in their leadership position? What was your thought behind developing these 5 archetypes?
It was noticing again and again that people who had great skills, a great deal to offer, were put into positions where they were set up to fail. Not intentionally, but set up to fail. And recognizing that if the higher ups could understand, this isn't about good, better, best. This is simply about different. We've got to get rid of good, better, best. And those who were thought leaders were feeling guilty and inadequate because they didn't do well leading a team. Well, they wouldn't. But that team leader is great in this team. But if you put him out on stage by himself, he'll panic. He works great with people. He doesn't work well as that front runner, as that other person out there. Seeing this, my heart went out to these really highly effective people who were theoretically rewarded with the promotion when in fact they were being penalized by being pushed into a box they don't fit into. And in the right place, they all had an amazing ability to bring to the corporation if the corporation could see it.
And you can lose good people that way.
But you lose many good people that way because they leave, because although they may believe in the vision of the company, they are miserable and they feel like absolute failures in a position they don't belong in. They try to develop skills, but it goes so against their nature that at best they'll be adequate. but they'll never excel, and they're used to excelling. They love excelling. We all want to know we're doing our best. We all want to know that we can't wait to get up. If we're going to work anyway, we might as well be excited about going in there. And the more those purpose-driven organizations are really working on purpose, you now got people looking to work for companies and consumers who want to buy from companies because they believe in their purpose. But if you're going to believe in a purpose, you have to know that you're working for it in the best way possible. And that means not being put into a leadership position that doesn't fit who you are.
So we need to, as organizations, people that are, high up positions in an organization, to rethink what it means to either be in a leadership position or rethink about those different leadership styles, and not to, as you put it, kind of, you're forcing someone into a position that goes against what their natural talents and giftings are. And we've seen that time again, and honestly, not just in leadership positions, but I would say in a position where you have, let's say, an entry level, you have a sales rep position, right? This person's great on the phones. They're charismatic. They're wonderful with their customer service. Their boss taps them on the shoulder and says, hey, we have a sales manager position open, right? And so now they believe that because this person was so naturally gifted and talented in one area, well, now, hey, let's promote you and put you in a sales manager. Well, you and I both know there's a different skill set from a manager, right? From a sales rep to a manager.
And they may have loved going into work and doing sales and felt this great, I did it. Every time they made a sale, there was this great sense of accomplishment. I did it. Now they're over there not selling anymore, but in charge of those who are selling, and absolutely miserable. You've lost a benefit to the company because it's so ill-placed. Absolutely. And so it really is recognizing, owning that if my style of leadership is all about service and I want to service the company because I'm on the low rung of the ladder, if you will, but I'm perfectly content at the low rung of the ladder. I'm perfectly content being the leader of the salespeople here in my department. Doesn't mean I want to lead them, but if I'm always the highest producer, great. It's not even my competitive edge. It says that I'm excelling at what I love to do. Let me be here. That is not a lack of ambition. It's not a lack of drive. It just says, I found the place where I excel. I'm selling a product of love, knowing it's having an impact on the people who are buying it. I absolutely love the service I am doing.
And there's two questions I have for you. What can the organization, what do they need to do to change around that? We have someone in this position, we want to promote them, but we don't know if we should promote them. We're going to just randomly promote them into this position, but they may not be in their natural gifting. But as an employee or as a leader, as a woman or male leader, how can I communicate that I am thriving in this position and that I shouldn't be held any points docked against me if I don't want to accept and go down this other leadership path that you think I should, but because I'm quite comfortable, I shouldn't say comfortable, but thriving in this role. So what can organizations do differently, and what can I do if I'm experiencing this and politely want to decline because I'm thriving where I am?
Without getting fired, because you keep declining promotions and they fire you because they think that you're going nowhere and you've got nothing to offer. You're an underachiever.
Exactly.
Look at all the judgment we place all over the place. We're back into, which is really what my tagline, if you will, mindset and communication skills. That if we truly know how to communicate, let's keep it simple. Life is simple. Communication, life's not always easy, but I do believe it's simple. We have an amazing ability to make it convoluted, but I think life is a very simple process. It's just not always easy. Make it simple. Do you want a promotion to head up this team? Absolutely not. Do I want a raise? Yes. How can we redirect how I get paid? Can we take a look at I get a bigger percentage of sales if that's how it works? Can I get whatever? If you want to honor me and respect me because of my success and my commitment to the company, can we find a way? Because I do want to keep increasing in salary. I do want to keep increasing in compensation. But I want to do it because I keep producing more. I keep giving more. Not because I'm walking up a ladder that I don't belong on. So having permission to be honest and open on both sides, having permission to be honest and open, everybody wins.
And it's okay to not, like you said, I don't want to climb a ladder that I'm not interested in climbing. I'm thriving. And that's why I had to change my language to not comfortable, because it may not necessarily be a place of comfort, but I'm thriving every year, every month. I'm still excelling in my sales. I'm still increasing. I'm still impacting the bottom line. I'm still creating great loyal clients or customers that are impacting the reputation of our organization. So the individual is still thriving, and we have to get out of the mindset that because we're thriving, the natural next step is, we need to give them a promotion. Or they want to, or we assume that people want to be where we are. And honestly, that was always my thought. I was like, I'm looking for great talent on my team when I was, 17, 18 years old, because I know they're going to want to replace me. They're going to want my job, but that's an assumption that I'm making. And
You're right.
And like you said, if you don't know your employees, like you got to really get to know your employees and have those career conversations with them. If you're giving them feedback, if you're touching in with them on a frequent basis, not just annual reviews, like you mentioned real quick, that you will know where their aspirations are and how best to support and direct them. And I think that also is another way for us to kind of to rethink how we can approach this. We can't assume, and we have to support individuals where we are and get the best out. We're going to retain great, loyal individuals in our organization. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it doesn't matter if your organization consists of 3 people or 30,000 people. If you're going to honestly know them, you're going to know what feeds them, and you're going to know where they are. Because some of the women I've seen that I've worked with, they've got little ones at home. And on one side of them, they would love that job 5 levels up, but where they're going to be gone 60, 70% of the time. They love that idea of it, but they don't want it now. Right now, they want that job where they can go in, absolutely love what they're doing and do it well, and be learning and growing and developing, but still be home in the evening with their kids and weekends for soccer games and whatever. But knowing that they're not stagnant, they're growing and they're developing, so that once these kids are older, that mom can get out there and she can get that job and go and fly and do all of the things that she would love to do, but not right now. So you get her best, you're developing her, she's developing, and she's ready that as soon as the kids are older, she's on a plane and going and traveling and bringing your company message wherever it needs to go. And again, recognizing we're working with whole people. This, it really, what we're talking about here is changing how corporate organizations are run. It's changing the mindset that a successful person is the CEO. The CEO may be the most unhappiest person in the company on his 5th wife, none of whom speak to him, none of the children speak to him, and yet he's so-called a success. Really, let's take a look at what does success mean? And if I am the leader of my own life, I am the leader of where I am going in my career. Let me lead it. Let me work with you in collaboration so that I can become the best me. Not the person, unfortunately, as we've trained them for so many decades, that if you're truly going to be effective, you've got to be in the C-suite. And I love working with C-suite. It's truly primarily the people I work with. But people who are doing what they love at that level are having an amazing impact. People who are there and angry with either alcohol issues or family issues or whatever other issues, they're in a C-suite position, but are they truly effective leaders?
Right. Service, leadership, that's what it's all about. You develop the 5 archetypes of leadership, and applies to both men and women in an organization. Obviously, you have a lot of clients that you work with and helping women excel in their leadership positions, which is very needed, and getting women a seat at the table. But when you get that seat at the table and you're in that position, how do you navigate that? And so I like that it is not just for women, it supports women and particularly, but what you designed is really a template, a blueprint of getting the best people on your team and really identifying what those skill sets are, that, and not taken away from any other, leadership style or skill set, but
right.
Owning that particular skill set. So, with that being said, you mentioned this as we wrap up this segment, and we talked about leadership as a service. We talked about a little bit about your philosophy on leadership and your definition and some of the clients that you've worked with, Dorothy, and the work that you're doing. You also briefly threw in there, which I had to come back to, this book that you have coming out. So don't think I didn't catch that. Tell us about this book, Letting the Good Girl Die, and something. So please tell us what it's called again and when it's coming out.
Letting the Good Girl Die so the Real Woman Can Live. And it really is about supporting women being in a position where they can own their power, reclaim it when somebody chooses to try to take it away from them, but do so from a place of power, not from a place of anger, not being tough and not being nice. I'm in the process. I've just completed my 6th book, so this will be my 7th, and it takes time. It takes time. So I will be getting that out there, and I may initially let it go as an ebook, making it a shorter book of about 40 pages. But, it's one of those things. Writing a shorter book is much more difficult than writing a longer book. You want to make it really effective, really powerful with as few words as possible.
When is it coming out?
I hope to have it out by the end of the year. I've just released another book on women in leadership, the mindset and communication skills needed. That's actually on my website, as well as a book that I wrote about owning your leadership, the 5 archetypes of leadership. So really can be found on my website at askdrdorothy.com. Either one of those are out in ebook form, and they can be found over there in my store, on my website. There's so much, as I'm sure you find, because you're reaching so many people in so many countries on the planet, that the more you grow, the more you learn, the more you want to share. And there are so many different ways to do that. And from now, I'm doing much more in the ebook way, because it seems to be a faster, easier way for folks to read and get the basic information they need. Right. It's an adventure adapting, always adapting and loving what we do.
So askdrdorothy.com is where they can go to get your latest ebooks. You mentioned a couple on leadership, and also the 5 archetypes of leadership are there as well. And will they also be able to find out when your new book will possibly be released? If they go there, is there some contact?
Is there a promotion for it? No, they can give me a contact, give me a call, or drop me a line, and I will let them know. Because certainly as I'm working on, I don't want to make a promise I can't keep. But it will be out as soon as I could possibly get it out there.
Excellent. And if they want to get a hold of you, let's say, and work with you, would askdrdorothy.com be the best way as well?
It really would. Or they can drop me an email at dorothy@askdrdorothy.com, or even give me a call at 860-543-5629.
Well, I appreciate you, Dr. Dorothy, for coming on to the show and sharing your wisdom with us. And I always like to ask our guests, sometimes if we have the time, if there's a favorite quote, if there's an inspirational one-liner or phrase that has helped you in your career that you'd like to share with our audience, something that you operate with on a daily basis.
The one that I say repeatedly, humor and faith are the necessary tools of this journey. Humor and faith. If we cannot laugh at ourselves lovingly and have faith that it always works out as it should, those two, for me, faith and humor, are the necessary skills. It helps us keep life in perspective. When you're living your passion, when you're living your purpose, you're filled with joy, and yet you still need help sometimes keeping things in perspective.
Humor and faith. Well, I hope we brought a little bit of both to you today. I hope you can reflect on where you are in your leadership journey. One of the best gifts you can give yourself is sharing this with someone else, because when you do, whether it's in verbal form or written form or just passing along this link to someone, you are helping to reinforce what you've learned, but also giving someone else some information that they might need even more than you. So again, we appreciate you taking time out of your day. Again, I hope this was an investment for you. Be sure to share, be sure to drop us a note, a line, a comment. Let us know what you thought about the show. Let us know what you want to hear. Again, you can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Spotify and Spreaker and different other outlets. So make sure that you reach us and tune into our show. Thank you again, Dr. Dorothy, for being here. As always, I like to leave my audience with this quote: everyone wants to succeed, but not everyone is willing to do the work. And if you are willing, I will help you do your work. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Like a Real Boss podcast with Tiana Sanchez. We are your ambassador, helping you go from good to great to extraordinary. To learn more about awesome offers, training programs, books, and more, head over to www.nolimittoyoursuccess.com. Until next time.